Greetings. Welcome back. Oh, yes. Welcome to Reparations Ministry. This is Obadiah. For those that know me, my name is Stephen. Biblical name as well. Stefanu Stephen. Uh, but my Hebrew name, or the Hebrew name that I ascribe to, is Obadiah. I wanted to make this video, while everything was fresh on the top of my head to, talk to you guys about what we're in. We're in right now. It's the summer of 2020. No, I'm sorry. It's the summer of 2019. It's going to be 2020 next year. For those of you who may not know, I'm located in the United States, and in the United States, there's a presidential election every 4 years. And we're coming on to 2020, which is another presidential election. And one of the talking points that has been going on in the news, in social media specifically, and in talking points in general, is reparations. Now, this is why I wanted to make this video. I got so many things to say about it. Reparations. First of all, I want to get detailed here. If you will bear with me for the next 15 minutes of your time, I appreciate you being here with me. Bear with me. Let's get detailed. Reparations. First thing first. Uh, Before we get into reparations, I want to talk about the backdrop that is prevalent in the discussion of reparations. In other words, what? In other words, what? Really? In other words, what? Black people supposedly are talking about when it comes to reparations. Now, it's well known, or it should be, that there is a disconnect between African immigrants, immigrants from West Africa, immigrants from Ghana, Senegal, immigrants from Kenya, immigrants from Nigeria, Cameroon, immigrants from Africa as a continent. So I'm naming the countries in Africa, which a lot of Black Americans don't know. They think Africa is a country, and it's it's very unfortunate how uneducated we are when it comes to the topic of our own history. But that's the purpose of me making this video. So there's a disconnect between Africans living in the United States um, and African Americans. That term African Americans was actually created in the 1980s. It was created in the 1980s because it sought to identify Black people by a national by a national like, okay, for example, let me just be bare right here. Let me be transparent right here. The United States is not 200 years old, contrary to popular belief. We celebrate the 4th of July, and next month. They might say the United States is, if I'm not mistaken, let me do the math. Uh, Hold on a second. Let me do the math. Yeah, they're going to say the United States is 243 years old. No, no, no. The United States is older than 200 years old. The first people, see what they're not counting is what they're not counting. The years they're not counting is the years of the establishment of slavery and the establishment of this 13 colonies. They're counting the year that they founded the government in Philadelphia in 1776 on all the way to 2019. That's 243 years. But they're not counting the 1500s when African immigrants were forced to live in the Caribbean in Brazil. They're not counting in Florida. They're not counting the 1700s when African immigrants first settled into uh, what we now know as the United States, Florida, Georgia, Virginia, Massachusetts, along the East Coast, South Carolina, North Carolina. They're not counting the 18. They're not counting those years from the 1500s to 1600s, and they start in the late 1700s. So this country is older than 500 years old. To be honest, to tell the truth, it's older than 500 years old. The point I'm making is to that's why I don't like going into getting too detailed. You forget where you're going. But the point I'm making is this: the history of African Americans in the United States has been watered down. It has been a lot of the history that we learned about our own people comes from the education system, the public education system, the Department of Education, the United States government teaches us that, you know, slavery only lasted, 150 years. And that's not true. I'm not going to get into that because I just got out of that rabbit hole I went into. It's hard to get out of a rabbit hole once you go into it. But let me keep this short. I personally am an African American. I personally am qualified to speak on this because first, my father is directly from the motherland. I do not know my father. I do not hate my father. I have no animosity towards my father. But my father he was born in West Africa and he migrated here um, in the 70s for a better education. My mother grew up here along the East Coast, and my mother's family uh, are descendants of slaves. My father's family very, very possibly suffered under what the British went into, what the French went into, what the Portuguese went into West Africa and took a lot of our family members, kidnapped them, raped them, stole and sold them. So it's very possible that, you know, my father's family experienced that, as well as many, 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 many. It's millions. It's in the millions of West African families experience that. Now, in Central Africa. Now, the the misconception that the disconnect that African Americans and Africans have with one another comes from the media. It also comes from transportation TSA, the transportation agency. And what a lot of people don't know is that when it comes to, that's the point I'm trying to make. I'm gonna get to that point later. What a lot of people don't know is when African immigrants come to the United States, they actually tell African immigrants, and they learn from the media too when they turn on the news and when they open the newspaper, when they see television shows, and it's considered a part of everyday life. Which is why I'm not a big fan of the news because they if you notice if you watch the news they never talk about white collar crime. I'm not gonna say never. They rarely talk about white collar crime. They rarely talk about corruption in the United States government. But they talk about corruption in other countries. They got no problem going to other countries to go to war in other countries and pillaging and stealing from other countries as long as it doesn't happen here. That's what the media does. It gives you one sided view um, of the whole picture. That's what the Western media does. But what a lot of people don't know is when the immigrants come here, they're told do not associate with people in black communities because the black communities are crime ridden area of the country. If you want to if you want to settle down, locate, work, go to white neighborhoods, which is what black people do anyway. When they get out of college, they get a good job, they make they might make a little money. The first thing black people in America do, they move to white neighborhoods. So I mean, you're doing the same thing, but you're thinking you're two different people, but you're doing the same thing based on what the media, based on what um, white supremacy tells you. So I want to dispel that notion. African Americans do not hate. They've been miseducated. They've been misinformed. They don't generally hate Africans. They think Africans look down on them because of the struggles that they have to go through coming out of slavery. And African Americans need to understand that Africans don't hate them. We Africans immigrants generally look at African Americans as you're in a country where you have more opportunity than if you were to go live in Cameroon, if you was to go live in Nigeria, if you was to go live in Ghana, if you was to go live in Senegal, if you was to go live in um, Kenya, if you was to go live in um, Benin, there are more opportunities in this country than there are you know, in African countries. So why are you not able to take advantage of that? And that is because when African immigrants come here, they come here with a purpose and a vision. I have to survive. I have to survive. Now, um, African Americans don't have that mentality. African Americans, we don't just survive. we've already adapted the ability to survive. We're just trying to live comfortable. So that's the difference. And just because you're on a different trajectory economically does not mean that you are two different people. You just come from one section of the people, uh, African Americans, so to speak, come from a trajectory of having to go through slavery. Post, they call it PTSD, which is post-traumatic slavery disorder. Africans come from the trajectory of having to have been colonized, meaning they were able to keep their culture, but they had to subject themselves to European colonialism. They had to subject themselves to be in service to European. And a lot of the structure that goes on in Africa is based on European government. It's based on European culture. And Africa right now are trying to get out of that because they're being exploited by Europeans for their resources. Asians are doing it right now. They're exploiting Africa for their resources because Africa had to go through colonialism. They have no power. They have their land. They live in their own country, but they have no power. So we're not two different people. Now, this video is not going the way I would like it to go, but I hope you understand or have a better understanding of um, the disconnect that's been there. Because this is one thing. I'm going to use the term black. Um, this is the one. This is the one thing black Americans call themselves when it comes to reparations. They call themselves ADOS, ADOS. ADOS is the acronym for African Descendants of Slaves. Now, I got no problem with that. However, I do have a problem with you saying that you are ADOS, but you are not African, because it's the oxymoron. You are basically double talking. You are basically uh, double tongue. You don't, it doesn't make any sense for you to say, I'm an African descendant of slaves, therefore I deserve reparations, but you disconnect yourself from Africa as an African in America. So the one thing Black Africans are focused on is repairing the damage that has been done to Black people in America. Black people in America really don't see or know that, because Black Africans really don't talk about it. Because the first thing Black Africans have to do is they have to take back their own house. They have to get their house back in order. And then they can, you know, do some other thing to correct the disconnect, to fix the problem. But Blacks in general, both Black Africans and Black Americans in general, we lack patience. We don't see things long term. We want everything to happen like that. And that's not usually the best case or the best scenario or the best route. You know, they say slow money is better than fast money. That's what they say. So in those terms, slow progress is better than fast progress. All right. So now reparations. I don't think, believe, know I don't agree that black people should get reparations. Now, this is why I say this. Because it's not in the divine will of the Creator for us to get reparations. I understand Japanese people got it, Indians got it, which is how you know Indians are not. But anyway, um, Germans got it, the farm Jews got it. I know every other race that have been wrong during this time of history got some form of reparation. But what makes Black Americans and Black West Africans so special is that we're exempt from that list because the Creator exempted us from that list. Now, if you know my video, I do get into the scripture, and I'm going to get into the scriptures to prove to you guys that reparations is not part of our legacy. It's not part of our. It's not part. It's not part of our story. It's not ordained for us. Now there are some Esau out there. Esau is not the white man, but that is another story for another time. Esau is a Hebrew. He came from the lines of Abraham, from the lines of Isaac, and he is the son of Isaac. So, but if you feel like selling out your birthright for some reparations, then who am I to argue with you? But for those who follow the Most High, and for those who are serious about pleasing the Most High and repenting and living, it really is tough, and living according to his will. Reparations is not a part of. Now let me go into. I think it's yeah, like I said earlier in the video, I don't plan. I think I said earlier in the video, I don't plan. I don't plan ahead. I just take. I think that I've come to realize that the best way to make a video is to keep it original, to keep it, to keep it. Um, uh, okay, we're gonna go to the book of Isaiah. No, we're gonna go to Deuteronomy. Let me look at Deuteronomy real quick. We're gonna go to Deuteronomy 28. I'm not big on going to Deuteronomy 28 because everybody knows it. But if you don't know it, it's one of the most popular verses when it comes to Black Americans awakening to who they are. They're the children of the Scripture. Deuteronomy 28 is like one of the staple pieces um, for a lot of Black Americans. Now, in Deuteronomy 28:68, it tells you, and I'm going to reference it with the book of Isaiah. It talks about reparation, but it talks about reparation in the sense that it's a connection to slavery. So we're going to read Deuteronomy 28:68. And I'm going to read it the way it is written. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake to thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Now, what did no man shall buy you mean? Because when slaves were sold, when they came to the country, they were put on the market. They were sold to white men, white slave owners, and so what is that? And no man shall buy you mean? What do you mean? So we go to Isaiah. We go to Isaiah 52, if I remember that correctly. In Isaiah 52, it tells us, let me find it. Yeah. It tells us specifically what the Most High planned for his people to come out of slavery. So it says, Isaiah 52 too. Shake thyself from the dust, arise and sit down, O Jerusalem. Loose thyself from the band of thy neck, O captive daughter of Zion. For thus said Yahuwah, ye have sold yourselves. Now, I want to stop there. There's been a lot of talk that Africans sold black people to slavery. That is the furthest thing from the truth. That is a lie from one West, from people who have hate in their heart. Africans did not sell black people. There's no such thing. What happened was there were tribes Hebrew tribes. I'm going to be very specific. The Igbo, the Felucia, the Mena tribe, the Yoruba tribe, the Ashanti tribe. There's one tribe off the top of my head I can't remember. There were warring tribes that warred against one another. Israelite tribes, Hebrew tribes that warred against one another during that time, and they would sell their own. They would sell. In fact, it is a well-known fact in a book called Hebrewism of West Africa that the Ashanti sold their own into slavery. And when the Ashanti were decimated, the Mena tribe, warred with the Ashanti, and the Mena sold the Ashanti into slavery. And the Mena tribe were later then sold into slavery by their captors. Now, both of those tribes are Hebrew tribes. So, Ham, the saying that Ham sold Israel into slavery is a lie, because Ham was way, way on the other side of the continent. Egypt, Libya, Sudan, parts of Sudan, Eritrea, parts of Ethiopia. Ham residing in that area. Ham was not in West Africa. So how did Ham sell Israel into slavery if Ham never lived in West Africa? Does that make any sense? No, it doesn't. So when the scripture says you sold yourself, that's exactly what it means. You sold yourself. We sold ourselves. So let me continue on reading. For thus saith Yahuwah, you have sold yourself for nothing, and you shall be redeemed without money. For thus saith Yahuwah, your all, My people went down a fourth time into Egypt to sojourn there, and the Assyrian oppressed them without cause. Now, that right there talks about what's going on today. Um, the United States is referred to as Egypt because Egypt was considered the land of bondage. If you look at Deuteronomy, it tells you that it tells us that Yah will send us again into Egypt again. We went to Egypt one time. That was it. When the brothers went and found Joseph, and Joseph told uh, his brothers to go get Benjamin, and he would release uh, Benjamin. No, he would release the rest of the brothers if they went and got their father and Benjamin. And when the family went into Egypt, Joseph at that time caused the family to rest, rest to Egypt, live like royalty. You are a guest. You are considered honorary guests in Egypt because at the time, the land surrounding Egypt was everything was dying. It was dry. It was a famine. So Joseph pretty much saved Israel from dying out by living in Egypt. It's just that when Joseph died and our people multiplied in Egypt, that the Egyptians started getting, okay, these people might take over. So we got to do something about that. But Joseph had died. And Manasseh and Ephraim were not heirs to any throne. So they really had no power. So Manasseh and Ephraim started, getting grouped in with their brethren, and everybody else went to slavery at that time. So what Yah says in Deuteronomy 28:68 that we will go into Egypt again, but this time we would go with ships. So, and in Isaiah, it's telling you that we have sold ourselves for nothing. We warred over nothing. We killed ourselves over nothing, like we do today. Oh man, you look at me wrong, I'm gonna shoot you. For what? And I mean, it's really heartbreaking. It's really sad, but it's prophetic. It had to happen. It had to. We had to go through with it. But as far as reparations go, I hope I really didn't veer off topic. This is the thing: we don't need reparations. The country never going to give you reparations. Just accept that and prepare yourself for the exodus, because we have a greater gift than the Creator has a greater gift, a greater future, a greater purpose than just to get a handout from a government that is $33 billion in debt. $33 billion in debt. It's not going to happen. So, hopefully, this video helps give you a little understanding. I know I wasn't very coherent. I wasn't in tune, but I wanted to make this original. Just go off the top of my head. I may talk a little bit more about the understanding of, or the lack of understanding of the disconnect between our people. We're not two people. We're one people. It's just that we were separated. We were kidnapped, and it's like when you kidnap a baby out the house, and even though the baby is a part of the family, the baby grew up for 5 years with the family, and somebody kidnapped the baby. And then 25 or 30 years later, you see that child, and he's a grown person. That child is going to take on the custom that he grew up in. That child is going to take on the language and the traditions that he grew up in. And when you see that child again, it looks like a different person, but it's really the same DNA. You just look like a different person. So um, we need to stop dividing ourselves. Because yeah, matter of fact, let's see if I can find it. I know I'm not gonna read it. I know it off the top of my head, but there's a scripture. There's a wisdom. There's a saying that says, "A kingdom that is divided against itself cannot stand. Neither is a house that is divided against itself." So if Satan casts out Satan, how can Satan stand? It can't. It will be the end of Satan. So uh, a house divided against itself cannot stand. And right now, what we're doing as Black people in America, because like I said, I identify with both. My mother and my father, I identify with both because by 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 DNA, we are both. If I divide against myself, I would destroy myself. I mean, it's just that simple. It's called a parable, but it's called a parable because a lot of people don't understand it. And that's the crazy thing. It's so simple, yet a lot of people don't understand it. So hopefully I've touched on a few things. I need to get back to this day, and hopefully you can leave some. Oh, by the way, subscribe to this video. Subscribe to the channel. I do have some more videos coming out. I'm gonna do a reading. Let me see. I don't have it up here. Oh yeah. I'm gonna do a reading. I do have this book called "The Blind Can See, the Deaf Can Hear." It is a book that I put together and wrote, breaking down the scriptures, talking about the talking point. I will do a reading from it, maybe the next time around. And I'm still studying the scriptures as we should be, taking maybe 10 to 15 minutes out of our day, you know, open the book, read, try to gain understanding. And I will continue sharing with you guys. But I hope you guys get an understanding. We are not two nations. This is not Esau or Jacob. Okay? This is not two nations in the womb, and the Africans and the African Americans will fight each other and kill each other and die. We are one people. And you have to understand that the disconnect is being caused by outside force. And that outside force is white supremacy. And the only reason that is going on is because if we connect, I'm just going to say, may the Father's will be done on earth as it is in heaven. But anyway, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for bearing with me. I know it's been a little longer than I thought, but may Yah be with you. Shalom.